warm welcome to StratNews Global. I am Nitin Gokhale, and I am honored today to join President Armեն Սարգսյան of Armenia, speaking to us from his country via Skype. And we are honored, sir, that you have agreed to speak to us, given the kind of situation the globe is in today because of the pandemic. So let me begin straight away by asking you, how do you see the COVID pandemic panning out, and what have you been speaking to different leaders?
You want me to speak about the pandemic, give some valuation. How do I see it?
Yes, right.
Fine. Let me start with something maybe that will sound a bit strange to you. Where we are now, I think is not because of the pandemic. Pandemic is not the cause. Pandemic is the consequence of the changed world. For decades and decades, the world was intensively changing. We're becoming very, very globalized, not only in the meaning of that we were trading globally, or there was World Trade Organization that was trying to organize the trade between states here and there. No, we have become a really global village in a sense that it's absolutely normal for us, for example, to pick up the phone and speak live with you in New Delhi. and has become a norm. And this is a world that has changed dramatically. Now we live in huge cities, tens and tens of millions in one place. We all go to the same shopping malls where thousands of people work and tens of thousands of people visit every hour. We are flying huge number of airlines packed in a small area and breathing the same air, exchanging the bacteria and the viruses that we carry with us. So the world has become completely different. A big part of our life is virtual. Half of our lives are virtual. So we haven't noticed properly that the world has changed. Years ago, I started thinking about this phenomena and came up as a former physicist with an idea that we're living in a new world which is not classical, the one that we had in the 20th century. And I call this world quantum. First of all, many things in this new world are behaving not classically. So it ended up with a book which is called The Quantum Behavior of Global Risks, and pandemics is one of these risks. So pandemic is not the cause of what we are. Pandemic is the consequence because the world has changed. Because if the pandemic starts somewhere in China, not necessarily it has to go through Mongolia via Russia to Europe. It jumps quantumly from China to Italy, from Italy to United States or to Spain or anywhere in this world. And then it's so difficult to control it because the behavior is quantum. Because even each of us has so many connectivities and connections. So we spread, basically we communicate in many ways through our connections, and viruses are one of our connections as well. We shake hands and exchange with each other bacteria and viruses as well. So this is highly speedy, congested world, which is moving very fast, and a lot of events here are behaving quantumly. And this is not only the pandemic. Look what happens with the stock exchanges. Just emotional information, it goes dramatically down. What happens with the reactions of many governments? I think unthinkable numbers and unthinkable amounts are thrown into the market. What happens to many things here? So my message to you is that in this world, pandemic, this one, is not the cause of the big chaos that we are facing. It's just a consequence that humanity has not realized that we live in a completely different world, in a quantum world. And this virus is another virus. I think either we will overcome it, hopefully soon. Well, in any case, the best doctor is our body and our immune system that is creating antibodies against this virus. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be no other viruses coming tomorrow.
I agree. But so what do you see? What do you see the solution going forward? What do nations do or what they have to do going forward in the coming months and years?
Well, what we have to do is, first of all, we are doing. Each of us is doing something. We are doing all different. So we have a big spectrum of how to behave. Yes. From the ones that are giving good results, there are countries that the pandemic is very, very limited, controlled. There are countries where it has become a big disaster. And it doesn't matter where. Are you in Europe or not? Take European countries like Italy or Spain or even Britain. I think you have huge difficulties in those countries. So what is happening? I look at this as if we humans are going through tests. So pandemic is a test.
Right.
First, remember, it's not the cause, it's the consequence.
Right.
And second, it's a test, and it's a test for everybody. It's a test for humanity. I think we as humans, the global nation, apparently was not prepared for a simple virus pandemic. And we have not spent enough time, enough money, enough science in order to find solutions. It's a test for individual states. How do they behave? There are states that they were doing logical things. There are the ones that were doing something else and were not successful. So it's a test. It's a test for international organizations, starting from WHO and going up to even big states like United States. Different states are behaving differently. So it's a test. It's a test to European Union. I mean, claiming the unity in the European Union is one thing when you have huge spending on international laws, connections, speaking about common this policy, common telephone policy, common energy policy. But is there a common pandemic policy in Europe? Apparently no. And how do the European states react when there is a pandemic? Some of them basically panic. They close their own borders with the other members of European Union, while the whole idea of European Union to act as an integrated institution. So it's a test for states, it's a test for organizations, it's a test for every Irish government, it's a test for inside every Irish government to the healthcare and medical services, it's a test to businessmen, be that you are Boeing or I don't know,
or Toyota, perhaps,
or whoever. Up to it's a test also to big multinational virtual companies as well. In a lot of cases, the big companies have been affected negatively. Some of them have been affected positively. It's a test also to how good the managers are to manage their businesses, from the big up to the small one. It's a test of family relations. It's a test who is your neighbor. It's not only important what sort of medicine you are taking today or not. It's also how nice is your neighbor. Are you both keeping basically the simple rules of behavior, wearing masks or washing your hands? It's a test inside the family, and it's the set of individuals how responsible you are. Maybe you are young, but you are not responsible, and you are getting the infection or the virus, and because you are young, it's not difficult for you, but then you carry it to someone who's elderly or sick, so you're not responsible. So it's a test for the humanity.
True.
But these tests were there. There were tests for humanity on for example, environmental issues. For many decades, we were ignoring the calls for it to look more seriously on the environmental. Now, with the test of coronavirus, I can give you an example. When I'm watching my house from the top floor, I'm watching this. The city is absolutely crystal clear because there are not enough cars, there are not enough factories working, so the air is fresh. So you can even breathe that. I'm not sure about New Delhi.
I can tell you, President, in New Delhi, we are experiencing once in a lifetime beautiful weather in the height of summer, which are normally we get 45 degrees temperature in the month of May. Today we are not going more than 35 or 36 degrees, crystal clear skies. So I agree with you fully on that.
I think that it's another test in our lives. It's also the test how the financial markets are behaving or the governments. Imagine 5 years ago, if the US government would announce that they are going to invest in the economy $1 trillion or two, I think people will be shocked. And if that $1 trillion was invested, let's say, in biotechnology or healthcare or medical supply or fighting against making our nature or the air not clean, I think that $1 trillion would have made a big change. So it's a test. What's this coronavirus?
I agree. But let me ask you more about your theory of quantum politics, because you are somebody who's watched it and you've spoken quite extensively about it. Explain to our viewers a little bit, what do you mean by quantum politics, and what is the future for quantum politics?
Well, quantum politics is just an idea. An idea that I've been trying to make it a theory. Well, why? Because I'm a physicist, and I was a theoretical physicist that was operating with quantum mechanics and theoretical physics, and basically dealing with big objects like stars and so on and so forth. When I started very young doing that, one of my favorite scientist was Professor Chandrasekhar, Nobel Prize winner.
Yes.
And the idea is that if I simplify, because I don't want to make this a course of theoretical physics with you, and how the ideas of quantum mechanics can work in social life, in politics. To make it simple, first of all, the life that we live now is not the one that was there 50 years ago.
Correct.
It's past because of the technology. We are interconnected with we're interlinked, and many things, their behaviors are not classical at all. And many things, what is happening in our lives, it's difficult to explain.
Yeah.
And many things are changing, and they look a bit odd. So was the case 100 years ago when physics was still classical, and people couldn't explain new phenomena that was happening with small particles or a big crowd of small particles like elementary particles, plasmas. They didn't know how to explain effects until they realized that the normal classical logic no longer works. You see, it was confusion. Like there is a lot of a confusion of political theory and understanding what's happening in this crazy world. Until people started understanding, and geniuses like Albert Einstein, Max Planck, and others understanding that the ordinary logic, the classical logic that you are using in classical physics doesn't work. I think that small elementary particle has many connections, and I think that it doesn't move according to classical physics. For example, if you try to fix his position, then you will have a probability of him being everywhere. If you want to try to fix his velocity, then you will find out that he can be everywhere, anywhere. So you're thinking more about the probability of the event because of the interconnection and interlink and so on. The same is happening with our world. Let's imagine you look at the world where live 10 billion people. Okay? Each of us is a particle with a lot of features and a lot of features and connectivities. We interact. starting from this interaction, coming up with exchanging with viruses, okay? And this interaction in many ways is not classical because this goes through with the speed of light.
Right.
So we are becoming more and more quantum objects, and our behavior alone or in a group cannot be described through classical means of logic, classical theories of politics. So you have to look at, to find the new rules to explain what is happening.
Yes.
Just a simple question. You go back 50 years ago, or 60 years ago, or 70 years ago, people were shocked when the first president, starting from United States, starting to talk to their people on radio. In Europe, in UK, in France, in America, in Soviet Union, and so on. Then the first president speaking on television. Okay? Now, yes. How do presidents communicate with people? Twitter.
Absolutely.
So they are on the spot, real time, very quick. They don't need any network or something. Some, in the tendencies in our politics where we see it, sometimes you don't need an ideology, you don't need institutions, you don't need even a political party to win elections.
You can be an individual winning the election. Yeah.
The moment you win elections, you are constantly in touch with your electorate, right, because of this Twitter. So you know what they think daily. Do they like you or you hate you? So now you have to redefine what is democracy in this new quantum world. It's not that the democracy, electoral democracy, years ago when you were elected as a politician for 5 years, so you're going twice to your villages and meeting people, explaining to them what you are doing, and going back to New Delhi, to Washington, to London or to Paris, running your business. No, it's daily connection, and basically people react daily as well. So, plus, another feature of this quantum world, politics and entertainment were always close to each other. Go back to ancient Egypt, go back to your history, go back to ancient Rome, the gladiators, the emperors. Now it's even closer and closer. I mean, a part of politics has become entertainment.
Right. And
some great entertainers have become great politicians. I can give you many, but on the surface of the idea, right, the basic idea is that this is a completely different world, and we have to rethink many of our values, many of our the way we exercise logic, because all the old theories and logic and approaches, they don't work. Because if we'll continue using it, we'll fail. We will not predict the next pandemic, will not basically run properly what's happening, and we will have in many places sort of mutations of real human values or institutional values or democracy.
Fascinating, because I am a student of physics. I graduated in physics coincidentally. So I found it very fascinating. But let me come to more practical things at the moment. How are you coping in your country with the COVID effect? Is there something that you've done differently, or have you seen countries like India doing something which can be emulated elsewhere? What's your sense?
Well, yes. You were saying, please.
No, that's all. It was just an echo.
Okay. First of all, I do value, as I said, all of us and each of us were going through a test. And if you look at this test from the point of view of scientific research, the more tests we have, the better. So we'll try to understand. Although the basics of these tests are the same. I think there is a pandemic that goes up the curve, reaches the maximum, and then comes back. And even I had this pleasure of asking young students to model mathematically a pandemic for me. Mm-hmm. And the best ones will get on the 15th of May, they will get the presidential prize. So it's mathematically quite a simple thing if you don't go into detail.
Right.
Everybody is going to go through this curve because there is only one cure, it's our immunity. Because whoever has got it and survived, will not get it twice because there's an antibody in your body and that will recover. And because there is an old cure, there's no medicine today or a vaccine, but there's an old one, isolation. Right. 2,000 years ago, people were doing the same thing. The difference is that if you go 100 years back, you were getting pandemic with different fascinating and horrible names about Black Death and others, but you could find one village with a Black Death, the other one properly healthy and so on, because there was no connection between them.
Exactly.
Basically, what the explanation was, okay, people in this village have been cursed because they did something wrong and so on, but in reality, they got someone that brought the bacteria or the virus. The other ones were lucky they didn't get it because there was no connection. Now the world is interconnected. How you're going to isolate people? Correct. So the solution is again the same. It's how to make this curve going up and then going down wider in time, so you'll not hit the maximum in a short period of time because you don't have enough capacity, neither doctors, medicine, or ventilators to help people to survive this pandemic. Yes. So mathematically, it's the same for everybody, but for a country like India, well, I mean, you are one of the most complicated quantum objects on this planet, both by your character that is very unique and so individually very free, but also as a huge number of people living together.
Exactly.
I think your experience, and I know in detail how Indian government is handling this big difficulty. Armenia is a small country. We are around 3.5 million people. Yerevan is more or less the half of the population of Armenia. And we have around more than 3,000, close to 4,000 people infected. And as more or less in the world, we have around 1% of those who are infected are losing their battle. So we are around 40 people that are dead, where the government has implemented the classical measures of restrictions, but again, we are all human. I think sitting in a room for a week, 2, 3, for a month or two, emotionally, a lot of people they don't do that, and any sign of making the restrictions a bit less stressful, people start thinking that, okay, it's finished. They jump out. Yeah. So my message to those people that I know in India, I have a lot of friends in India, in many places, both scientists, businessmen, politicians, just ordinary people on the street. Don't get excited. The coronavirus is still going to be with us for a while. Keep the ordinary restrictions with you. If you can wear a mask, wash your hands and face and everything regularly. Try to not sit together. So basically, minimize your connectivity. You can maximize your connectivity virtually. Like this. Because the maximum you can get is an electronic virus. That will distort the picture there. Right. But at least minimum you will not be infected by someone there. So it's a test. Different countries have done differently. We will have to accumulate this because unfortunately, as I told initially, this is the virus, COVID is not a very unique virus, and it's not the worst virus in the world. It's a very bad one, but we have seen the worst, and there will be others coming. Right. So I think if we learn our lessons, if we will come to the right conclusion from all of these tests, from political, financial, up to individual tests, then probably we can say that COVID was the cold shower that helped us to understand that we are living in a different world. And that world is quantum. And that world is quantum.
Very well put. Mr. President, before I let you go, one final question. You've been in office for exactly 2 years and 1 month. if I remember correctly, if I get that correctly, as president. Of course, you've had a long, distinguished career as a diplomat, as a scientist. But going back to the last century, the genocide in the last century has not been acknowledged by countries like Turkey. What does one do so that the world actually recognizes it, or at least says that yes, this happened? That continues to be a question that dogs people in countries like India and in Europe, I'm sure. What is the sense that you have on that?
What do we do in order? I would say that the problem of not recognizing a huge human tragedy, that the genocide of a nation, and not recognizing that, and we in this case it's the genocide, the fact of the genocide and the consequences are not recognized by Turkey.
Correct.
Turkey is a republic now, and the events of genocide happened at the end of the Ottoman Empire, organized by young Turks and not this government of Turkey.
Sure.
Let me make 2 or 3 points. Point number 1, I will call it the point of strength. I mean, you recognize your mistakes if you are strong. If you are strong enough, you are not afraid of saying, yes, I did wrong, and I'm sorry. And that doesn't put you in a weak place, that puts you in a strong place. Point number 2, I would call it truth and justice. When 1.5 million people have died or perished from a huge territory of former Ottoman Empire, later Turkey, they were there. And they were there for thousands of years. Armenians are not newcomers. We didn't come from other places of this planet. We were always here for several thousands of years, always. And where did these people perish? So what about their culture? What about the thousands of churches they left behind them? Thousands of towers of castles, thousands of cultural centers, huge literature, and so on and so on. Where these people perished? So there is that important point of truth and justice as well. Now, what should I do in order to tell Turks to recognize? Nothing. I think there is the history, and the world has recognized it. And I think if Turkey one day, the Turkish government, and of course through the government it will go to the people, they will recognize the Armenian genocide. First of all, it will be good for the people of Turkey and the state of Turkey. Because if you want to join specific values or specific culture, if you want to, for example, Turkey wanted to join European Union, but one of the big European values that is keeping Europe together today is tolerance.
Yes.
Otherwise, can you imagine what would happen today between England and France? These guys were fighting for hundreds of years, or France and Germany. So recognizing the history and basically going forward, tolerating other people, tolerance is very important. And it's very important because when some people ask me, I sometimes give examples of tolerance in India. I mean, when you have that, more than 1 billion people living so compactly, if you don't tolerate other people's values, maybe it's related to your religions that you're exercising there, maybe it's connected to your history. But what I have seen in India, of my many visits as a free man, first of all, is amazing and fascinating. The way you exercise in a country like India democracy, which is one of the most successful democracies in the world because of the size of democracy.
And the diversity that we have.
Armenians, and when I look at the genocide of Armenians in 1915, we lost 1.5 million people. If you make a simple mathematical calculation, that would mean that if you take our worldwide Armenians that are around 10, 12 million, 3.5 in Armenia and then worldwide, probably would have been now 20, 25 Armenians. So this is not a loss of lives of 1.5 million. Also, it's a loss of a generation of people who are unborn today. Now, we were always in Armenia, but we were always people on the crossroad that were carrying many cultures, information, and traders. We were in India, 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. My son's name is Vartan, which is my father's name, but the real name comes from Saint Vartan, that takes us back probably around 1,500 years or more. And Saint Vartan Mamikonian family were Armenian family of nobility that 100 years ago moved to India, and some of them to China, lived in India, and then came back. So Armenians were always connected with others in culture. And Saint Vartan was the leader of Armenian army that lost his life in a battle against Persians. These Armenians were the first Christian state, and they were fighting against Persian Empire. And the name Vartan became a national name. But you know where is the origin of this name? It comes from Sanskrit. It's Vardhan, God's given.
Okay.
Our relations is not only the Armenian communities in Madras or in Bombay or many places in India, but it goes back thousands of years, and we carry a lot of Indian names, Indian ideas and philosophy, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yet Armenians were on the crossroads of civilization. We were the first Christian state in the world. We suffered for what we believed. We suffered hardly, but I think that makes also our nation a strong nation, a nation of survivors. And in 21st century, individual survivor skills are going to be very important in the quantum world.
Right. No, very well put, President, and thank you very much for all that you've spoken to us. The insights are fabulous, both on physics and quantum politics, as well as the massacre and the genocide that took place, and the way you have explained that it's up to Turkey now to really recognize it for their own good, if not for the good of the world. But thank you very much for your time, and we will keep coming back to you.
And I would like to thank you for this interview, and I would like to take this opportunity to say my best wishes through you to the people of India, to all of my friends in India, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Indian government, for the President, especially Prime Minister Modi, because recently we got quite a friendly support from India, a huge number of medicine from India that will help us to fight the coronavirus. And this is a wonderful opportunity to speak about friendship between two big nations, big in history. One is in number, the other one also big in their hearts. So I'm looking forward to visiting India again, and I invite you to come to Armenia. You'll find it fantastic.
I'll take that up for sure, but thank you very much once again. And to our viewers, don't forget to like us on our social media handles. And of course, keep sending the feedback. The President has been very kind to speak to us and spare his time. Until the next time, it's goodbye.